Hey everyone, we're Caleb and Ava. Today we've got a sci-fi mystery story for you. My friend's daughter went missing, but she actually appeared in a newspaper from the 1980s. Let's get started. My friend's daughter mysteriously disappeared in 2007, but he actually saw a photo of her in a 1988 newspaper, a photo of a mirage. He said he was going to search for her, but a few days later, he disappeared too. I started looking for him, and what I found was a chilling truth. I've got something to tell you, but you can't tell anyone else. Forget it. Even if you tell them, no one will believe you. Caleb finished his beer, giving a half smile that was a mix of hesitation and self-mockery. I know where Maya is. Caleb's daughter had disappeared. It was a few years ago on a summer night when Caleb was banging on my door, asking if I had seen his daughter. "Let me in, please. The kid said she was coming over to your house this afternoon. Did you see her?" Outside, Caleb was gripping my hand desperately, like a wild animal. Back then, there were few security cameras, so the police checked a few on the main street, and missing person flyers were posted everywhere. But Caleb's daughter had vanished without a trace. After that, Caleb lost it. Regular methods turned up nothing, and Caleb's house was filled with so-called fringe religious people and private investigators. But every investigator was a fraud, and Caleb burned through his savings with no leads on his daughter. So when I heard he had news about her, I was ecstatic. "Quick, tell me where she is. I'll go with you." "You can't come." Caleb's expression turned melancholy. "Daniel, Maya's mum died young. You're my only friend and Maya's godfather. I'm asking you for one thing. This is really strange, but even if there's only a 1 in 1,000 chance, I have to go. If I don't come back, there's something for you in the second drawer of my bedroom." We were sitting at the furthest table from the lights in the restaurant, and the summer night was so dark I could barely make out his face. "Stop stalling, Caleb. Where the hell is Maya?" I was losing it. Why was he playing this game now? Caleb looked up and stared at me for a long time, but his eyes told me he wasn't really seeing anything. He was just lost. "The photo," Caleb said in a hollow voice. "Maya is in the photo." "Where's the photo?" I asked quickly. If I could just figure out where that photo was taken, we might have a lead on finding the girl. "Daniel." Caleb choked back tears, pulling out a piece of paper that looked like it had been cut from a newspaper. I pulled out my phone and, using its light, examined it closely. The paper was yellowed, clearly old. The headline read, "City reports mirage, strange buildings clearly visible." The building didn't just look strange, it looked downright eerie. It was a massive bronze door hanging in the empty sky, completely out of place with the surroundings. What was even weirder was that, judging by the surrounding landscape, the door in the photo was nearly 40 meters tall. I studied architecture in college, and I know the biggest doors in the world are in the east, but even their main door is only about 18 meters. This bronze door was more than double that height. There was no way such a thing could exist on Earth. Right in front of the door, on the ground, was the silhouette of a little girl, facing the camera. "Daniel, look at this little girl. Her figure, the clothes she's wearing, doesn't it look like Maya?" Caleb's voice was hoarse. The photographer must have been focused on the mirage, trying to capture the door clearly, so they zoomed in, making the girl look smaller and blurrier in the photo, but it was still clear enough to tell it was a little girl. "Look at her clothes." Caleb pointed at the person in the photo. "Doesn't that look like the dress Maya used to wear? And her hair. I braided Maya's hair myself. I wouldn't mistake her." Caleb said, his voice trembling. "Hold on." I quickly reassured him. "A mirage is just light refracted through the air. Light can't refract something that doesn't exist. This door might look strange, but it's probably just a camera trick. If we scan the photo, we can search online and find where it was taken. Daniel, do you think I haven't thought of that? Caleb waved his hand in frustration. Looking at the old-fashioned photo in the paper, an unsettling feeling rose in my chest. Caleb looked at me with a strange expression, his words slow and deliberate. This newspaper is from 1988. Maya went missing in 2007 when she was 11, and in 1988 she wasn't even born yet. Caleb's words hit me like a thunderclap. His daughter, missing for so long, appeared in a newspaper from over 20 years ago. If it weren't for this photo, I'd think Caleb had completely lost his mind from the pressure. I'm not asking you to believe me. Caleb smiled bitterly when he saw the doubt in my eyes. Daniel, sometimes I think I've lost my mind too. I don't care if this girl is Maya or not. I have to go find her. How are you going to find her, with just this photo which might not even be real? I was getting frustrated. Caleb was my best friend, and I wanted to help find Maya. But how could we search based on just an old newspaper photo? Where would we even start? If you're coming, I need you to do one thing for me. Caleb stood up, patted me on the shoulder, and motioned for me to stop asking questions. I slumped in my chair, the noise of the crowd around me, but my mind was silent. I watched Caleb walk away, wanting to say something, but not knowing what. A few days later, Caleb disappeared. We had agreed that he would text me at certain intervals to confirm he was okay. 3 days ago, that contact stopped. I immediately thought about calling the police, using their resources to find Caleb. But what could I tell them? That my friend had disappeared while chasing a mirage? Would anyone believe me? After some hesitation, I reported it to the police. At that point, I had no other choice but to rely on them. The officer who took my report was in his 40s, and I smartly avoided mentioning Caleb's reason for disappearing. I just said I couldn't get in touch with him. The officer asked a few basic questions and told me to wait for further updates. If anything comes up, we'll contact you right away. If you know where his parents live, you can check with them. Caleb was an only child, and his parents had both passed away. I stood outside the police station, smoking like crazy, feeling like things were at a deadlock. Without the police's help, finding Caleb on my own was like searching for a needle in a haystack. I kept smoking, pounding my head with my right hand. This headache was a childhood habit whenever I got anxious. After a few hits, the pain subsided, and I started to think of a plan. Maybe there was one way to find him. I remembered what Caleb had said before he left. After he disappeared, I should go to his house. Caleb's house wasn't far, but I hadn't been there once since he disappeared. I instinctively avoided going, even though there might be something important he left for me. I just had this feeling that digging too deep into this could lead to uncontrollable things happening. I don't think I'm the kind of person who would give up everything for someone else, even though I do want to find Caleb and his daughter. And if I had to, I'd help him without hesitation. But right now, what was pushing me forward more than anything was my curiosity about that photo. The little girl in the photo looked so much like Caleb's daughter. I'd heard of cases where people look so alike they could be twins, even if they're not related by blood. But could it really be that coincidental? A little girl who looks just like Caleb's daughter happens to appear in a mirage. Is that even possible? The bigger mystery was that 1988 newspaper Caleb talked about. Knowing Caleb like I do, he never collected old papers. So where did he even find this one? I decided to call Monkey. Monkey's real name is James, and he's been friends with Caleb and me since we were kids. We all grew up in the same apartment building, and Caleb gave James the nickname Monkey because he was small and wiry. There was a time when those two fought over something and stopped talking, but my relationship with Monkey didn't change. I tried to patch things up between them, but they're both stubborn as hell, and neither would back down. Now that Caleb's missing, though, the first person I thought of to help me was still Monkey. After all, we grew up together, even if we had our differences later. We had too much history for me to just walk away. The phone rang quickly, and I explained everything to Monkey. There was a long silence before I heard a sigh on the other end. "Where are you?" he asked. Monkey showed up at my place pretty soon after. It had been years since we last met face to face, mostly just keeping in touch over the phone. But when I saw him again, I noticed how much thinner he had gotten. We didn't waste time with pleasantries. I immediately told him what was on my mind. "You're not joking, are you?" Monkey looked at me seriously. I shook my head, helpless. "We haven't spoken in years. The whole thing with Maya going missing, I only heard it from you." Monkey sighed. "Do you think the stress has messed with Caleb's head?" "I've seen the photo in that newspaper. It does look like her," I said. "And Caleb doesn't seem like he's lost his mind." "Guess we'll have to check it out," Monkey said. "See what he left for you." We arrived at Caleb's apartment complex just as the sun was setting. The building was old, the lights were out, and we had to use our phones to navigate in the dark. There was this weird, nostalgic smell in the air, like burning corn stalks, reminding me of my childhood home. It wasn't a bad smell, but it wasn't exactly pleasant either. For a moment, I felt a little dizzy, like I had been transported back in time. Caleb lived on the 4th floor. I took out the key he gave me and unlocked the door. Monkey let out a soft exclamation, and I jumped. When I looked up, I saw that the entire wall was covered with photos. "Looks like they're all photos of Maya," Monkey said quietly. Caleb had inherited his father's love for photography, but after his wife passed, he stopped taking landscape photos and focused all his attention on his daughter. I felt a pang of sadness. The electricity had been cut off for overdue bills, so we had to use our phone lights to search through the bedroom. It didn't take long to find what we were looking for: 2 brass keys and a note. I felt strangely disappointed. I thought I'd find some strange, supernatural object, but instead there were just 2 plain brass keys, one bigger, one smaller, probably bought for a few cents at the hardware store. I unfolded the note and, using the light from my phone, barely managed to read the scrawled words. "Storage room." The handwriting looked familiar. "Caleb means the storage room from the old house?" Monkey reacted quickly. I nodded. There were 2 keys, and the bigger one was probably for the storage room at our old place. Old buildings like ours usually had a row of small rooms across from the main building for storing bikes and other things. Caleb's family and mine shared one of those rooms when we were kids. It had been our secret base, full of memories. But one thing didn't make sense. Why didn't Caleb just tell me everything clearly in the note? Why did he lead me here with such an indirect message? I started to think that Caleb was guarding against something. I looked at Monkey, and he was staring right back at me. I knew what he was thinking. Our old house had been torn down years ago because of redevelopment, so how could Caleb have left me a key to a place that no longer existed? Just as we were both lost in thought, the bedroom door slammed shut. Someone had slammed it from the outside. The sudden sound of the door slamming in the dark nearly stopped my heart. "Shit!" Monkey cursed, then almost instinctively kicked the door. The door was thick, and despite his full force, it didn't budge. "Who's there?" I yelled. I heard rustling outside like someone was searching for something. "Thief!" Monkey reacted first. I regretted not locking the door when we came in. Now someone had broken in. "Damn it, I'm calling the cops!" I yelled, kicking the door again. But the door wouldn't open, and the sounds from the living room grew louder. "Move!" Monkey shoved me aside. He took 2 steps back, then charged at the door with his shoulder. There was a loud bang, and finally the lock gave way, opening a small crack. The crack was too small to see anything, so I quickly had the idea to use my phone's camera to take a few pictures through the gap, just in case we needed proof for the police. "Seriously? You're taking pictures now?" Monkey didn't wait for me to finish, yanking me out of the way and kicking the door again. This time, it gave way, and Monkey was the first to rush out. I followed close behind. The person outside seemed to have been expecting us, because as soon as we busted the door open, they bolted. The night was so dark we could barely see, but we chased the faint sounds of their footsteps down the stairs. My head was spinning, and part of me thought we shouldn't be chasing after them. At first, we seemed to be gaining on them, but then, just as we thought we were getting closer, the sounds stopped. We both stopped in our tracks, surrounded by nothing but pitch-black darkness, unable to tell which direction to go. "Shit, they run fast," Monkey panted. Worried that they might have an accomplice, we didn't stay long. We turned around and hurried back the way we came. Out of breath, we finally made it back into the house, and that's when I remembered to check my phone. I had it on burst mode, but thanks to the bad lighting and the poor resolution of phones back in the day, the pictures were a blurry mess. All I could make out was a figure in the living room, rummaging through something in the glow of my phone's flashlight. Clearly, they hadn't expected us to break in the door so quickly, or maybe they saw the flash of my camera. The figure hesitated for a second before running toward the door without looking back. It looked like a man. He probably saw we'd left the door open and took the chance to do something bad. The living room was a mess, thanks to the shadow. Books and ornaments were scattered all over the floor. Monkey and I started picking them up, cursing the intruder under our breath, while keeping an eye out for anything else that might have been taken. Then I froze. "Where are the photos?" Monkey noticed it too. There were a few pictures missing. At first I thought they might have fallen on the floor, but after I collected everything that had dropped, I didn't find any photos. "Damn it, they stole the photos too," Monkey muttered. He clearly didn't see the bigger issue. I quickly realized the thief wouldn't be interested in photos. A chill ran down my spine as I started to piece things together. The shadow might not have been a regular thief, but someone who was after the same thing as me. I told Monkey my thoughts. "Is anyone else looking for Caleb?" Monkey asked, frowning. "I don't know. Caleb's been hiding things from me too," I admitted. Things were starting to get complicated, and my head was pounding again. I couldn't stop myself from hitting my skull. "Still haven't gotten that fixed, huh?" Monkey said, giving me a look. I shook my head, replaying the scene in my head. When I kicked the door open, the figure hesitated. Why didn't they run immediately? Unless they were after more than just the photos. The photos weren't many, and even if they didn't find the one they wanted, they could have taken all of them and gone through them later. There had to be something else in that living room the person wanted. I started looking around the room again, and my gaze landed on the coffee table Caleb had brought with him when he moved. The drawer handle underneath the table had clearly been tampered with. The drawer was oddly designed, without a place to insert a key, which is probably why the thief had trouble opening it. Suddenly, memories came rushing back. I almost trembled as I reached under the table. There, hidden away, was a round keyhole, and matching it was a small brass key. I tried several times to fit the key into the hole, but it just wouldn't go. At first, I thought I was doing it wrong. After repeating the motion a few more times, I realized my hands were covered in sweat. Monkey patted my back. I took a few deep breaths, forced myself to calm down. When the key finally clicked into place, my heart tightened. With a crisp turn, the drawer opened. Inside was a Nokia slider phone. It was Caleb's. He hadn't used it since Maya disappeared. The phone was off to save battery. Without hesitation, I pressed the power button. The phone lit up with a pale glow, thankfully still with a third of its battery left. The content had been wiped. All the call logs and messages were deleted. except for a video that lay quietly in the gallery. I instantly realized that this might be the very thing Caleb wanted me to see. The video was blurry, shot with a 500k pixel camera. The footage was shaky, clearly taken while the person filming was in an agitated state. It was near dusk. The camera seemed to be in some park-like area surrounded by trees and flowers. The focus was on the sky, constantly shaking, with occasional white noise flickering in the frame. This continued for half a minute. The person filming was obviously searching for something. Just as I was about to fast forward, a flash of white noise passed across the screen again. Then a man's voice came through. It was deliberately lowered, as if to suppress a huge emotional surge. "I found it." The voice was distorted, but after years of knowing Caleb, I recognized it immediately. The video paused, and after a few deep breaths, Caleb spoke again. "I found it, Daniel." Then the camera slowly moved. He seemed to be adjusting the position of the camera. After a few subtle shifts, I finally saw what he was filming. A massive bronze door. It appeared abruptly, just like the one in the photo. Because of the video quality, I saw its color for the first time. A pale blue bronze door, quietly suspended in the void, as if it had always been there. Caleb must have been too excited. The screen began to shake again, and the door grew blurry once more. "Can you see it?" Caleb's voice struggled to remain calm. "This is the mirage from the newspaper." The camera flipped, and Caleb's face appeared, looking somewhat contorted. "Do you see it, Daniel?" He was staring at me, determined. "I'm going there." The video cut off abruptly. I watched it all in silence, my mind spinning. Monkey looked at me, confused, clearly unable to understand what had just happened in the video. I collapsed onto the couch, pounding my head, trying to forget all this madness. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw Caleb's twisted face in the video. "The door in the photo? Is it the same as the one in the video?" Monkey stammered. I took a deep breath and nodded. "How is that possible?" Monkey looked perplexed. "How could the exact same mirage exist in different times?" I felt a tightness in my chest. I pulled out my phone and checked the video's details. The video was dated 3 days before Caleb and I last met. That means the video was recorded before we met up, and Caleb didn't go back to film it for me to understand the truth. This was odd. Why didn't he contact me immediately after recording it? What had he been through in those 3 days? There had been many opportunities for him to tell me directly, so why did he wait until we met? The summer night felt cooler, and we both instinctively turned our eyes to the dark doorway. A wave of fear suddenly washed over me. That night, I had several strange dreams, one after the other. In one of them, Caleb was standing in front of the old storage room door. He pointed at my hand, and when I looked down, I saw the Nokia phone in my grip. "Is this what you want?" I asked, raising the phone to him. He didn't answer, just stared at me and smiled. I woke up again at noon. Monkey was passed out on the couch, looking like a dead pig. I rubbed my stiff neck, sat up, and stared blankly at the wall. I hadn't been back to my childhood home since it was demolished. The scientific explanation for the formation of mirages is well understood. But is there really such a thing as a mirage that can only be seen at certain angles with a camera? Even if it's a mirage, it should correspond to a real-world building. The door in the video had an awkward stance and color, clearly not matching anything in the world as we know it. But if that thing wasn't a mirage, then what was it? I was consumed with an overwhelming curiosity, the kind of curiosity that kills the cat, which shielded me from fear. It made me ignore the danger signals from Caleb and his daughter's disappearance. It made me forget how strange things were, or that maybe this was something beyond my control. I woke up Monkey and decided we should go check out my old home. At that moment, I didn't realize that this seemingly simple decision would be the first domino to fall. Everything that collapsed afterward was set in motion because of it. Or maybe, the moment I decided to uncover the truth, the gears of fate began turning silently. If I had a chance to choose again, I wouldn't have risked it. I would have done whatever it took that night to stop Caleb from leaving. But unfortunately, there are no ifs. We didn't drive. We took the subway to the place from my memories. After the demolition, my old home had turned into a suburban park. I stood at the park's entrance, recalling what it had looked like before. "Are you sure this is where he meant?" Monkey asked. I nodded. Honestly, when I saw the video, I immediately understood Caleb's point. The place in the video was where the old storage room used to be. But things had changed. Time had erased all traces of the past. We stood in the bustling park, unsure of what to do. Luckily, we had the video. By matching the reference points from the footage and relying on over a decade's worth of life experience, we finally pinpointed the general area. The old storage room had been replaced with a patch of grass. Monkey and I looked like lunatics, standing in the middle of the field, adjusting the camera. Maybe my serious expression kept people from paying too much attention. I tried to position myself like Caleb had in the video, but no matter how I adjusted, I couldn't get the mirage to appear in the camera. In fact, not even the white noise from Caleb's video showed up. Curious onlookers started to take notice of our odd poses. I felt a little embarrassed and smiled awkwardly at them. Somebody else stood here with a phone before. "What are you two filming?" an old lady asked. "Really? What did they look like?" James asked, his interest piqued. "A guy who looked about like you two. I don't know what's so special about this spot to film." The old lady mumbled. Monkey gave me a look, and I immediately realized she was probably talking about Caleb. That door hadn't moved in decades. If Caleb had been able to film it, there was no reason we couldn't. The only explanation was that we were missing something. I glanced up at the sky again. "It's time," Monkey said quickly. "Caleb filmed it at dusk." I pulled up the video, and sure enough, the timestamp showed 7:10 p.m. "What now?" I asked. It was noon now, and dusk was still a few hours away. "Guess we wait. What else can we do?" Monkey shrugged and flopped onto a nearby lounge chair. I was getting restless and couldn't just relax like him, so I started talking to pass the time. "Why did you and Caleb stop talking?" I asked. I remember I went back to my hometown with my parents that summer. When I came back, you two weren't talking anymore. "Just some petty stuff," Monkey laughed. "You know how kids are, they fight over the smallest things. But Caleb and I, we're both so stubborn, that's why we drifted apart." I nodded. Two mules like that are never easy to get along with. Funny thing is, I don't even remember what we were fighting about at first. Monkey scratched his head. All I remember is that it had something to do with his dad. "His dad?" I asked. Monkey nodded. "Yeah, I think it was over something with his dad, and it ended up in a fight." "That's pretty ridiculous," I scoffed. "Kids can be pretty ridiculous," Monkey shrugged. Then he looked at me as if a thought crossed his mind. "By the way, what happened to Maya? How did she go missing?" "She just disappeared," I said, confused by his question. "No, I mean, how exactly did she go missing?" Monkey asked. "Was there anything unusual the day she vanished?" "Caleb said she went out to play." I recalled what Caleb had told me. "How old was Maya when she disappeared?" Monkey asked, making a gesture with his hands. "She was about 11, right?" 12, I corrected. "A kid that age isn't easy to abduct," Monkey mused. "Did she tell Caleb where she was going?" "She said she was coming over to my place." I remembered. "Why would she come over to your place?" Monkey shot back. I was momentarily speechless. "Yeah, why would she?" Why would Maya want to visit your place? You're a grown man with no kids, no toys. What could there possibly be to play with? Monkey gave me a pointed look. Are you saying Caleb's lying? I asked, confused. Monkey nodded. He knew where Maya went that afternoon, but didn't want to tell anyone. Why? I asked, bewildered. Didn't he want to find his daughter? There's something off about this, Monkey said, his voice low. I recalled Caleb's frantic behavior that day. His heart-wrenching pain didn't seem like it could be faked. What if he knew about the mirage from the beginning? Monkey furrowed his brow. I thought carefully about what he said, and a chill ran down my spine. You mean, after the police couldn't find her, he started seeking out religious figures? Monkey continued. From what I know about Caleb, he's not the type to believe in that stuff. Maybe he was just desperate, I suggested. Monkey shook his head. If it was just once or twice, maybe I could buy that. But he wouldn't have spent all his money on it. If it were me, I'd rather spend that money putting up more missing person flyers than relying on some obscure religion to find her. But what if you saw what's in that video? Wouldn't your materialism be shaken? I asked, staring at Monkey. That's why I'm starting to doubt. Monkey frowned. He must have been exposed to this supernatural stuff before. So that's what made Caleb's materialistic worldview crumble, and why he turned to these strange beliefs, I asked. I'm really curious, Monkey said, looking up at me. What the hell did Caleb see in that mirage? We lay there on the benches, silent. Caleb had his reasons for not telling me these things, but one thing was clear. This was dangerous. He didn't want me to take the risk, but at the same time he wanted me to save him. People are contradictory beings. Caleb couldn't bear to see his childhood friend in danger, but his thirst for life still led him to me, leaving me with a sliver of hope for him. The sky was slowly darkening. It's about time. Monkey glanced at his watch. Monkey, I hesitated, then spoke. I should go alone. Why? Monkey shot back. Caleb went and never came back. I don't want the same thing to happen to you, I said. You're not like me. You have a wife. We've been divorced for years. I looked at him, stunned. Monkey chuckled. You know, how long has it been since we sat down like this, had a real conversation? You know, he continued, my dad passed away from high blood pressure a few years ago. After I started working, I always felt like there was never enough time, never enough to visit family, never enough to catch up with old friends. Free time. I just wanted to stay home and sleep. Then one day I turn around and realize family's gone and old friends are drifting away. The sunset's glow was fading, and Monkey pulled out his phone, switching it to camera mode. It's time! He stood up, grabbed my arm. If we bring that idiot back, I'm definitely giving him a punch and asking why he hasn't bothered to come find me all these years. The bronze door hovered silently in front of us, the pressure it emitted like the weight of a mountain. Monkey and I both swallowed nervously. How do we get up there? I asked. How should I know? Monkey snapped, tense. It's way too high. I can't fly. It seems lower than in the video. I opened Caleb's phone and handed it to Monkey. Look at the reference points beside it. I pointed at a tree in the video. In the video, the door was above the treetops, but now it's about half an hour later. It's already sunk below the treetops. It's sinking over time, Monkey said, his voice incredulous. Is this some kind of elevator? Caleb knew the mirage would sink down, which is why he said we needed to get inside. I explained. So how did he get in? Monkey asked. There's no way he just walked right in. Maybe he did, I said. Let's try using our phones to lock onto the building's position and see if we can touch it. This is way too magical. Monkey rubbed his temples. It's beyond my understanding. A bronze door that only appears in a video, never changing position, is already a supernatural phenomenon in itself. Strangely, I wasn't feeling as tense anymore. After all, the worst-case scenario was just dying, but if we could touch something so strange, at least it wouldn't have been a wasted life. The sky was growing darker. For a while, we couldn't even see the door in the video, only knowing it was somewhere nearby. Soon, the streetlights turned on, and with their dim yellow glow, we realized the door was now only about a meter off the ground. The sudden shock of a giant looming before us was indescribable. While the real-world view still seemed empty, the towering pale green monster in the camera lens reminded us of its reality. "Let's go," I tugged at Monkey, but when I tried to step forward, my legs were shaking. I looked at Monkey and saw he was trembling too. "Give me a second." Monkey gritted his teeth. I nodded, trying to steady my own emotions. Because of the fear, my phone camera was shaking, and the building in the shot kept warping. "Let's go." Monkey exhaled deeply, steadying the phone with his hand on my arm. The position we ended up in looked ridiculous, like two clumsy old men dancing the tango, but we couldn't care less about that right now. After the first step, the rest of the journey was easier. We probably walked straight ahead for another 2 or 3 minutes, keeping an eye on the video, but the bronze door seemed to stay just out of reach, no matter how close we got. Just as we were about to give up, everything suddenly went pitch black and the phone screen went dark. Then, the door disappeared. "Damn!" Monkey yelled. "Don't panic. The phone doesn't have night mode. It's just too dark for the camera to pick anything up," I said, scanning the surroundings. It was completely black, but I realized the streetlights on this stretch of the path were out. "Flashlight, flashlight," Monkey urged, his voice low. "Look at you, all panicked." I turned on the flashlight, and Monkey's old face reappeared in the darkness. "This damn thing is too creepy," Monkey muttered under his breath. I looked at the phone, but all I could see was black. The bronze door had vanished, and the light was too weak for the camera to capture anything. "Forget it. Let's go home." I patted Monkey's shoulder. Monkey nodded. After that scare, we were both shaken up. We had only walked a few dozen meters back when I suddenly stopped and looked at Monkey. He looked at me at the same time. "What do you want to say?" Monkey asked, his expression unreadable in the dark. "You go first." My heart sank a little. "Daniel." Monkey paused, then said the words I'd been dreading to hear. This isn't right." Around us, there were faint sounds of people talking, but we'd walked this far, and there wasn't a single person in sight. "Can you hear that?" Monkey let out a deep breath. I nodded. "Then who the hell is talking?" Even though I had anticipated something like this, Monkey's face still twisted in shock. When people are panicked, their judgment is clouded. Despite feeling utterly lost, I forced myself to stay calm. The sounds around us grew louder, but as I listened, something felt off. I couldn't understand what the voices were saying. It was like background chatter in a video game, muffled to the point that it sounded human. But as you paid closer attention, it became clear you couldn't make out any of the words. I glanced at Monkey, and he was staring at me, clearly hearing the oddness in the voices as well. "Do you understand what they're saying?" He gestured around us. I shook my head. "Could it really be a curse?" Monkey said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Stop scaring yourself," I replied. "I don't think those sounds are coming from anything alive." "Are ghosts alive?" Monkey shot back. "If there are ghosts, they won't eat you," I said casually, trying to lighten the mood. "With your skinny arms and legs, even if they did, they wouldn't put on any weight." "Go to hell," Monkey said, his mood lifting a bit. "So what do you think it is then?" "Sounds like electricity, right?" I said. "It kinda does." Monkey thought for a moment. "Do you have a compass on you?" I shook my head. He asked if I had anything made of iron. That's when I remembered my watch, and quickly raised my hand to show him. As soon as he saw it, Monkey hissed in surprise, sucking in a sharp breath. I looked at the dial, confused, and realized the iron hands of the watch were spinning wildly like propellers, out of control, and they didn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. "The magnetic field here is messed up," Monkey finally stammered out after a long pause. I looked at the spinning hands, and there were only two possible explanations for this. One, we were near the Earth's poles, or two, the magnetic field here was constantly shifting. Given that we were wearing short sleeves and hadn't frozen to death yet, I figured the second option was more likely. I shared my thoughts with Monkey. "Does this magnetic field pose any harm to our bodies?" Monkey asked. I shook my head. "I don't know, but either way, this place is definitely not Disneyland." Just as I was about to pull Monkey away, he suddenly grabbed my shirt. "Daniel!" He stood facing me, his expression tense. "What's that?" He pointed behind me. His sudden alarm made me nervous, and for a moment I was too scared to turn around. "Don't move!" Monkey took a deep breath and put a hand on my shoulder. "Just don't move." "What is it?" I asked. "I'm not sure." Monkey hesitated. "There's this black mist under the streetlight, a really dark mist." "Black mist?" I was surprised. "I don't know how to describe it." Monkey slowly turned his neck, his voice filled with unease. "It just feels strange." "What's going on with you?" I realized something was off with him. "Daniel, I want to go home," Monkey said, his tone strange, almost dreamy. Without warning, he let go and sprinted toward whatever was behind me. "Monkey!" I rushed to turn around, finally seeing the thing. Monkey hadn't lied. It was indeed a mass of black mist, as though it was swallowing the darkness around it, silently floating in mid-air. Even from just one glance, I felt dizzy. I grabbed Monkey by the waist to stop him from moving forward, but he seemed hypnotized, as if in a trance, relentlessly pushing ahead. "Monkey!" I shouted. "Snap out of it!" Monkey didn't react at all, as if he couldn't hear me. Even though I was holding him, he kept dragging his feet forward, his gaze locked on the mist like something was pulling him in. I leaned backward, using all my strength to hold him back. Monkey was a lot smaller than me, so I managed to slow him down. I didn't dare look directly at the mist, but from the look on Monkey's face, I knew he was under some kind of illusion. Glancing out of the corner of my eye, I confirmed the mist wasn't moving toward us, so I began to restrain Monkey's arms and legs. Monkey seemed completely entranced by the mist. No matter how much I shouted at him, he just kept murmuring, "Home." Seeing no other option, I grabbed his face and forced it to look at me, using all my strength to slap him hard across the face. The sound of the slap echoed in the empty night. Monkey finally snapped out of his trance, staring at me in confusion, and instinctively began to turn back to look at the mist. "Don't look back!" I yanked his head toward me. "Was I mesmerized by that thing?" Monkey muttered, rubbing his face groggily. I nodded. At least his mind was coming back to him quickly. "The damn thing can make you hallucinate," Monkey said, shaking his head. "Just now, all I could see was my home. At least it doesn't seem to be able to move. Otherwise it would have come after us by now," I tried to reassure him. "Not necessarily," Monkey frowned, as if deep in thought. "When did it show up?" "We didn't see it when we passed this spot earlier. It just appeared out of nowhere," Monkey said. "So you think this thing can teleport?" I asked. "What the hell is it?" "I have no idea," Monkey shrugged. "But I can tell you one thing. It's definitely not friendly." I took a quick glance at the black mist. It was still there, unmoving, almost as if it wasn't interested in us. "What do we do now?" Monkey asked. "Do we just ignore it and keep going?" I nodded. The best way to avoid danger was to not engage with it. Monkey and I slowly backed away from the mist, keeping our eyes on the road ahead while I kept watching the mist in my peripheral vision. Even though the mist seemed as still as a pond, I stayed on high alert. Every time I sneaked a glance at it, I tensed up, ready to drag Monkey into a mad sprint if it moved even an inch. Before long, after I glanced at it for the fourth time, the mist was gone. At the same time, Monkey stopped in his tracks. "Daniel," he whispered, "it's right in front of me now." My mind went blank. The oppressive feeling from the mist hit me like the first time I saw a massive Siberian tiger at the zoo. It was a deep, primal, instinctive warning, the kind you feel in your bones. The worst part? There was no glass between us and the mist. "What do we do now?" Monkey asked, his voice trembling. "Where exactly is it?" I asked. "About 2 meters in front of me," Monkey replied. "Don't look directly at it," I warned. "I know," Monkey snapped. "Just tell me, what now? Do we fight it or run?" I looked up at the streetlights. The mist had vanished from my side, confirming it could teleport. Running wasn't an option. I steeled myself and decided to confront it. When a person makes up their mind, they suddenly become brave. I turned around without a second thought. The mist was about 2 steps away, and I couldn't tell if it was just my mind playing tricks on me, but the temperature around us seemed to drop a few degrees. "I'll count to 3, and then we rush. Let's see what it really is," I said to Monkey. "Do you think we can make it?" Monkey asked. "Even if we can't outrun it, we're not going to be scared to death by a cloud of mist," I said. Monkey nodded, exhaling deeply. "Let's do it." Just as I started to count, the black mist suddenly began to glow. It's hard to describe what happened next. The mist emitted a blinding light, so bright that even though Monkey and I deliberately avoided looking at it, we were still somewhat dazzled. "There's a sound," Monkey suddenly said. I hadn't noticed at first, but when he mentioned it, I focused harder. Sure enough, I could hear a strange noise coming from the mist. There was a distorted crackling sound, like electricity, but mixed with human voices. It was impossible to make out what they were saying. Then, the light from the mist faded, and without thinking, both Monkey and I turned to look at it. That's when we saw it. A pale human hand slowly reaching out from the mist. We'd never seen anything like it. Panic set in immediately, and the courage I'd gathered just moments before was completely gone. Monkey screamed and ran to the side, and I quickly followed him. Behind us, the mist let out terrifying, hissing sounds, banging against my nerves like a pendulum. I didn't care about anything else. All I knew was to follow Monkey and run as fast as I could in the darkness. We had no idea how far we ran, but at some point, the rain started pouring down, and there was no one else in sight. Only then did we begin to regain our senses. I looked at Monkey, and he stared back at me, just as confused as I was. "What the hell was that?" Monkey murmured. My heart was still racing. I turned to shine the flashlight behind us, and luckily the mist hadn't followed. Perhaps because of the rain, the sound of people talking had also disappeared. Monkey wiped the rain off his forehead. "Do you think we've been cursed?" I started to regret getting involved in this mess. My clothes were soaked, and I longed for the comfort of a warm bath at home. "Daniel, what's that?" Monkey suddenly asked. I shined the flashlight back toward the direction we came from, as he had said. The rain was coming down hard, and through the downpour, the flashlight's beam barely reached the nearby area, revealing a row of low houses with tiled roofs, mixed with some old-style residential buildings in between. "Did these houses exist when we came through here?" Monkey whispered. "Am I going crazy?" I shook my head. The park was supposed to be in the suburbs, and this kind of old housing should have been torn down a long time ago. As I was trying to figure out where I'd seen buildings like these before, Monkey gasped again. I turned to look, and the park was gone. Now it was just more of the same kind of residential buildings. "Where the hell are we?" Monkey asked, sounding more panicked. By now, after seeing that massive door earlier, I had gotten a bit numb to these strange events. I wasn't as freaked out as I should have been, but the rain was heavy and there was nowhere to hide. I was more concerned about the both of us catching a cold than anything else. "Should we check it out?" I said, pointing at the buildings. "This rain's not going to stop anytime soon." We jogged towards the buildings. Probably because of the storm, the streets were deserted. As the buildings grew clearer in front of us, a more unsettling thought started creeping into my mind. This clearly wasn't our world anymore, but it was when we stopped right in front of the apartment complex that I was certain. I'd seen buildings like this before, back in my childhood, in the old neighborhood where I grew up. This was where we used to live. Monkey's eyes widened as the realization hit him. "I can't be dreaming, right?" Monkey slapped his own face hard. "Even if it is a dream, it's way too real," I said, running my hand over the scratches on the wall. They were from my childhood. The texture of the building was so familiar, I couldn't look away from those new scratches that were clearly carved by me. Our initials, 3 of them. The first floor was Monkey's home. I'd gotten into trouble for carving on the walls there once, and the old lady had yelled at me for it. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I'd have never believed it. The lights were on in the 4th floor apartment. That was Caleb's place. Monkey and I exchanged a look of mutual understanding. "You're the brave one. What do you think? Should we go in?" Monkey asked. I thought to myself, being brave doesn't mean I'm stupid. Who knows what kind of things are waiting for us inside that apartment? As I was hesitating, a flashlight beam shone through the rain, and it startled us both, making us panic even more. "What do we do?" I asked. "Quick, the storage room." Monkey reacted fast. I pulled out the key I'd grabbed from Caleb's place and dragged Monkey into the small storage room. The light kept getting closer, but thankfully the rain was so heavy that the person probably didn't see us. We crouched down in the darkness, holding our breath. The light from the 1st floor hallway flickered on, and through a crack in the door, we saw a thin man holding an umbrella, humming a song, as he quickly ran inside the building. "Dad?" Monkey stumbled backward, his face pale. "Oh my God, it's my dad!" Through the window on the 1st floor, we saw the man enter the apartment and turn on the light. The faint yellow glow illuminated his figure. Not long after, we saw a little boy's silhouette on the window. The man patted the boy on the head, and they sat together, eating dinner. Monkey collapsed to the floor. "This can't be real." "My dad's dead. I personally packed his ashes," Monkey said, laughing nervously. "This can't be happening." I was worried he was losing it, so I quickly helped him up. "Calm down. This is clearly not our world anymore." Monkey couldn't handle it, and we both stood there quietly, watching the scene unfold through the dark storage room. The lights in the room dimmed. "They're asleep," Monkey muttered. "What now?" My brain was in a mess, and I didn't know what to do. "Should we go check it out?" Monkey pointed to the 4th floor. "Maybe there's a clue at Caleb's place." I shook my head. Rushing into Caleb's apartment wasn't a smart move right now. "What do we do then? This is the 80s. We're dressed all wrong for this time, and if we stay out here, someone will spot us as soon as the sun comes up," Monkey said. "If they're even human." I stared at him, suddenly thinking of something. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" "Summer vacation," Monkey said firmly. "My dad would only wake me up for dinner during summer vacation. He never would during school, since he didn't want to mess with my study time." "Let's go to my place," I said, turning and feeling around for something above the doorframe of the storage room. "Your place? Is anyone there?" Monkey asked. "What are you looking for?" "Keys," I answered, feeling around until my hand brushed something metal. "The carvings on the wall are new," I said. "That summer, my parents and I went back to our old hometown. We didn't dare turn on the hallway lights, so we carefully made our way to the third floor in the dark. I knocked on the door first to make sure no one was home before pulling out the key and opening it. "What's that smell?" "It's been there since we got here," Monkey asked, frowning as he stepped inside. "Burning corn stalks," I said. "You don't remember the cornfield across the street from the building where they used to burn the stalks?" The house was laid out exactly as I remembered it, and I momentarily lost my sense of reality. I grabbed some dry bread from the kitchen, and Monkey hesitated at first, but in the end, probably out of hunger, we both ate in silence, nervously finishing our meal. The feeling of being full reminded us that this was all too real. "So what now?" Monkey asked between bites of bread. "How do we get back?" I shook my head, just as confused. The park was gone, and even if we wanted to retrace our steps, we had no idea how. "Maybe we can find Caleb. He might know how to get back," Monkey said, swallowing the last bite of bread. "What do you think?" "Why aren't you saying anything?" Monkey asked when he saw me looking down. The hand that reached out from the black mist, it had a watch on, I said, looking up at him. It looked like Caleb's. "Shit!" Monkey closed his eyes and collapsed onto the couch. "So what do we do now?" he asked. "We don't belong in this world." "If it weren't for that damn photo," I mumbled. "Photo?" Monkey muttered, then suddenly sat up straight, wide-eyed. "Was that photo from the newspaper Caleb cut out?" I nodded reflexively. "I think I remember why we fought," Monkey said. "That summer you went back to the old hometown, Caleb and I were playing downstairs. When Caleb went inside to use the bathroom, a strange man came by, borrowed Caleb's dad's camera, and took a bunch of photos of the sky. A few days later, Caleb's dad made the paper for capturing a mirage right outside our door, but I always thought that photo didn't look like it was taken by Caleb's dad. Caleb wouldn't listen, and we argued so much that we ended up fighting." "Was the photo really taken by Caleb's dad?" I asked, surprised. "I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it was that strange man," Monkey replied. "I mean, who wastes film taking pictures of the sky above their own doorstep?" "Do you remember anything about that man?" I asked. "Not really," Monkey said, rubbing his temples. "I've been wondering, what the hell is that black mist?" Monkey turned to me. "If it really swallowed Caleb like you think, why didn't it attack us?" "I have a theory," Monkey said slowly. "What if we think of the mist as a rule?" "A rule?" I echoed, confused. "A rule of this world," Monkey explained. "Let's call our original world the outer world, and this past timeline we're in the inner world. People from the outer world shouldn't coexist with their counterparts in the inner world. But we're here," I said. "We're coexisting, and that's the contradiction," Monkey said. "Two identical atoms can't exist in the same space-time, even if one is from the past and the other from the future. The universe must have a way of correcting this." "You mean—" A chilling thought crept into my mind. Monkey nodded. "The black mist might be that correction mechanism, the enforcer of this world's rules. If we break those rules, it'll act." "What are the rules?" I asked. "Simple. Don't meet yourself," Monkey said. "Remember the professor who lived on the top floor? The overweight guy? The one who studied theoretical physics?" I didn't understand why Monkey brought him up. "What about him?" "You never paid attention when he talked, did you?" Monkey rolled his eyes. "That guy once told us a story about how positrons and electrons annihilate each other on contact, turning into electromagnetic waves. I don't want to end up like that." "Maybe there's no rush," Monkey continued. "That door has always been there. If we approach it the same way we got here, we might be able to go back." "But our phones are dead," I said, exasperated. "We'll figure something out," Monkey said, staring at the wall, deep in thought. I lay back on the couch, rubbing my temples, watching the old green ceiling fan creak as it turned. I must have dozed off. In my half-sleep, I heard the cries of street vendors from downstairs. When I opened my eyes, Monkey was gone. I jolted upright, panicking for a moment until I spotted him standing in the kitchen, smoking and staring out the window. "Where'd you get a cigarette?" I asked. I remembered he'd quit years ago. "Your dad's stash," Monkey said, nodding toward the coffee table. I was stunned. My dad used to hide cigarettes under the coffee table because my mom wouldn't let him smoke. Monkey even remembered that. "Got any clothes?" Monkey asked. "We should change and head downstairs." We put on my dad's checkered shirts. Standing at the door, I hesitated, unsure if we should even open it. Monkey, impatient, twisted the knob and stepped out. It was nearly dusk, and faint strains of Shakin' Stevens' "Because I Love You" played from somewhere nearby. Caleb's dad had always been trendy. His love for photography was just one example. We moved quickly and quietly down the stairs, like thieves, hoping not to draw attention. The rain had stopped, and the sky was clearing. Monkey and I rubbed our eyes, everything around us feeling like a surreal dream. The streets were bustling with people, most dressed simply, though a few young trendsetters sported slogan tees, fitted jackets, sunglasses and jeans, the height of fashion for the time. "Where to?" Monkey asked. "Nowhere," I replied. We had nothing but a few decades too early dollars, which would only cause trouble if we tried to use them. Penniless, our options were limited to aimless wandering. "We need to find a way back fast," I told Monkey. "If we don't, we'll be broke and starving soon." "Monkey?" I turned when he didn't respond, only to find him staring intently behind us. A man walked by, smiling and nodding at us before hurrying away. "My dad's off to his night shift," Monkey mumbled, almost in a daze. "We can use Caleb's dad's camera," I said. From the window earlier, I'd seen Caleb's dad not far from the building, fiddling with a camera while a young monkey stood nearby. I told Monkey to stay out of sight. No one knew what would happen if two versions of the same person met. Calming myself, I put on a friendly smile and approached Caleb's dad. "That's a nice camera you've got there," I said. The younger monkey glanced up at me, and I felt a strange unease about meeting his gaze. "It's just a Fujifilm Instax," Caleb's dad replied modestly, handing the camera to me without hesitation. "I'm into photography too. Mind if I take a shot with it?" I asked. "I'll even trade you my watch." I unclasped my watch and offered it to him. "Go ahead, take a picture," he said, waving off the offer. "A roll of film isn't worth a watch." Taking the camera, I positioned myself by the storage room and aimed it at the sky. I pressed the shutter. "Your name's James, right?" I asked the young boy beside me. He nodded. "Your dad's waiting for you at the corner over there," I said. The boy thanked me politely and ran off toward the street. Monkey hurried over as soon as the younger version of himself was gone. The Instax developed the photo quickly. I handed it to Caleb's dad, whose face lit up in surprise. As we walked away, Monkey adjusted the camera in his hands, muttering to himself, "Daniel, something about this feels off," Monkey said quietly. "Don't think about it," I replied, not looking at him. Truthfully, I already had a vague suspicion in my mind. "Was it you I saw back then?" Monkey asked, confused. "Maybe," I said absent-mindedly, my thoughts tangled as I stared at the bronze door floating in the sky. When the door was close to touching the ground, Monkey and I were nearly there. We exchanged a look, both of us ready to step through. "Uncle," a child's voice stopped us. I turned to see the younger monkey tugging on my shirt. "Why didn't I find my dad?" he asked. My heart sank. I glanced at Monkey, who was staring back at his younger self with a troubled expression. Maybe it was the feeling of Monkey's gaze, but the child looked up at him. "No!" I shouted urgently. It was as if in an instant the familiar black mist appeared behind Monkey. Then, at a terrifying speed, the mist began to expand rapidly. There was no time to react. Before Monkey could even move, the mist engulfed him. "Monkey!" I screamed. "Uncle, are you okay?" The child looked at me, seemingly unaware of what had just happened. In fact, by the way he acted, it was as if he had completely forgotten about Monkey's presence. And just like that, Monkey was erased from existence. He vanished from everyone's memory, as if the world had corrected him. After swallowing Monkey, the mist seemed unsatisfied and slowly began to move toward me. My nerves were on fire. I couldn't think of anything else. I grabbed the Instax camera and rushed toward the floating door in the sky. In the haze, I could hear the sounds of a bustling crowd. I cautiously opened my eyes. My clothes felt drenched, as if I had been submerged in water. The old house had transformed back into the park. I looked at the Instax in my hand, disoriented, barely noticing the crowd around me. All I knew was that I had to keep moving until I left the park and got into a taxi. The driver asked where I was going, and without thinking, I told him Caleb's address. The newspaper must still be somewhere in Caleb's house, tucked away in some corner. If I checked the dates, I could confirm whether all of this was really as I suspected. I could still smell the scent of the old house on my clothes. The driver gave me a strange look, but at that moment, I didn't care. It was getting late. I opened the door to Caleb's house. It looked almost exactly the same as when we left. Just as I was about to start looking for that newspaper, I glanced up at the wall. There were countless photos of Caleb's daughter, and among them, two caught my attention. One was of Caleb's daughter standing in front of the old house's storage room with a blurry door floating in the sky behind her. The other was a photo of Caleb with his father. What was shocking was that in this photo his father seemed much younger. It seemed Caleb had used that door more than once to travel between the past and present, sometimes even bringing his daughter along. And it also proved one thing: Caleb had been lying to me. A terrifying thought began to form in my mind. If Caleb had traveled through that door multiple times, then the video on my phone must have been made specifically for me as a performance. In other words, Caleb had been guiding me step by step to give me a chance to save him in this alternate world, all to keep me from being scared off by the bizarre events. He didn't necessarily want to hurt me, but he was subconsciously keeping an escape route open for himself. I realized I understood human nature all too well, but it was hard for me to separate Monkey's death from Caleb's selfishness. I kept asking myself, if I had been the one going through all of this, what would I have done? But I wasn't sure. After all, had Caleb really been unwilling to trust me and Monkey, even after decades of friendship? Caleb wasn't the paranoid type. He should have known that if he told us the truth, we wouldn't have hesitated to help. It would have been much more advantageous for him if he had been honest with us, rather than lying and trying to manipulate us into rescuing him. Before I could think further, I heard the sound of keys turning in the door lock. I froze, panic rising, and rushed to hide in the bathroom. In the darkness, I couldn't see their faces, but I could hear them talking. One of them seemed in pain, repeatedly hitting his head. After staying in the living room for a while, they moved into the bedroom, as if searching for something. One of them, possibly irritated by the poor lighting in the bedroom, turned on a flashlight. When I saw his face, my body froze, like an electric shock running through me. I saw myself. The seconds felt like a century. I quickly processed the situation in my mind, and the truth became clear. Caleb had unknowingly discovered the floating door, but instead of telling anyone else, he used it to travel back and forth between the past and present. Maybe he just wanted to see his family. Sometimes he even brought his daughter along, but something went wrong. Perhaps it was Caleb, or maybe his daughter, or something else entirely that triggered the black mist's mechanism. Caleb's daughter was consumed by the mist, and Caleb, like me, was randomly thrown into a specific moment in time, the last time he traveled to the alternate world. The real Caleb was probably already in the alternate world, somewhere along the timeline with his daughter, and the one who had been filming and calling for help was another version of Caleb. This explained why he had never told me the truth, but instead guided me with lies. Because the Caleb who appeared before me was not the one I knew at all. The Caleb who had knocked on my door crying, the one who handed me the old photos at the restaurant. Perhaps he was just like me now, another version of Caleb from a parallel world. I took a deep breath and looked at the door. The me inside was still talking to Monkey. If I went out there now, maybe I could prevent the tragedy from unfolding. Maybe Monkey wouldn't die. But as I was about to push the door open, my mind replayed the events of the past few days like a movie. Monkey's scream, just before he was swallowed by the mist, echoed again and again in my head. I slowly withdrew my hand from the door. Every universe has its own rules. This world already had a me, and if I stepped out now, the me in this world and the me from my time would collide, like a positron meeting an electron, and we would both be annihilated. Maybe I could just leave, but where would I go? This was already the real world. That 1 second stretched on like a century. Then, without hesitation, I walked quickly to the bedroom door and slammed it shut behind me.